correct, which I'm going to assume that it is, we're going to call the meeting to order. Everybody present except Deb at the moment. I believe she's coming, do you know?
As far as I know, she's on.
So she'll be just a moment. Additions to the agenda, you see on the blue form a couple items to add. And then, Bob, you were going to mention maybe moving your review to that very end.
Yeah, I think two additions, one's a product and one's in business as far as the stadium. Also, the board is going to go into closed session for my evaluation today, so when they do that, I would suggest that we move everything in front of that on the agenda so that everybody doesn't have to stick around for that. And then go into closed session after that. And we'll review, the only agenda item that will be at the end of that will be to close again.
So do we have a motion to adopt the agenda? So moved by Mark, seconded by David. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Passed. District 741 is proud of the following FFA teams who competed in their region contest. The dairy team took first and will be going to state. Team members are Marissa Lillenring, grade 9, placed first. Abby Molitor, grade 12, placed second. 11th graders Kyle Willenbring, placed fourth. Tanner Schaefer, placed ninth, and Anthony Wentlet. The Ag Mechanics team took third and will be advancing to state. Team members are Andrew Lensmeyer, grade 10, placed fourth. Brady Terrace, grade 12. Brad Utch and Jonathan Sheffer, grade 11, and Corey Dahl, grade 10. Fish and Wildlife team placed 11th and will be not advancing. Congratulations. Anyway, it's an achievement with the region. Team members were 12th graders Kenny Olson III, Mike Ludwig, Jared Kunsleben, and Dalton Fluga, grade 10. Then we had Natalie Utch for being selected by her peers for the Minnesota FFA Honorary Member Award. This award is given to one person every year. The following 8th grade local human rights essay winners. First place, Bailey Whaler, whose essay will represent Paynesville at state competition, and Carly Leeser and Britta Liedman, who tied for second place. Last thing was an FFA livestock judging team for placing 7th at regions. Ashley Eisenbraun, grade 9, placed 7th, and Callie Raymer, grade 10, placed 10th individually. Other team members were 10th graders Peter Walls, Adam Coons, Tiffany Sherber. Okay, next on our agenda is public comment. Anybody here for public comment? If you're here for public comment, that's what that microphone is for. Nobody here for public comment, we will move on. Approve and correct minutes from the March 25th, 2014 regular board meeting. I have a motion from Deb. A second by Cheryl. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Passed. Next we have our consent agenda. So number 1 would be review and consider approval authorizing the elementary principal to execute and file an application for the 2014-15 school year title programs.
As it says in the addendum, each year we need to authorize somebody to do that. It's a requirement, so I would certainly recommend that we approve that.
Motion by Lou.
Are we going to do them? Yeah, I would say typically with the agenda or the consent, we do them both.
We do everything at
Do them all at the same time?
one time. So if we want to talk a little about the second one, and again, that's consider approving and issuing the diplomas. And again, that's a yearly piece that we need to do, and it has come to the board. And in the addendum, it kind of talks about that. It just says, standard procedures, issuing of diplomas, copy of the 2014 graduating class is in your packet. Again, this is approving the list. They still need to meet the requirements. So it's not, once we approve this, you don't automatically approve everybody will graduate. They need to do the work yet.
Okay, I'll move motion by Kella, second by David. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Okay, next on the agenda, number 1 is discussion of possible reductions in the 2014-15 budget and FTE time due to low numbers and financial limitations.
I've done some forecasting with the software package that I have, putting in all the financial information from the district for next year. And we really do need to make reductions. We are down 29 students this year from what we originally projected. Next year, if we just stay with the class size alone, we lose about 9 to 10 students just because the exiting class is bigger than, looks like the incoming class. Certainly we won't know that until the start of the school year, but we do need to prepare for that. Having said that, I told the board that we're looking at least $300,000 worth of reductions. To meet the needs of the district, we need to also start building up our reserve fund. As I mentioned to the board, we have about $200,000 in our reserve fund, but only $110,000 of that is unencumbered. The rest of it is already tied into either post-retirement requirements, or I think we still have some fuel that's there. Having said that, what the administrators and I have done is kind of have gone through things, and we put together some information for the board. There's some very strict requirements that we need to follow for any kind of unrequested leaves that we do. The first step will start at the next board meeting, where I'll present the board with a resolution. We'll talk about budget cuts today. It'll give you a chance to ask questions. It'll also give you a chance to think about it before the next board meeting. Give me a call, ask me more questions, explain why we have certain things on the budget for reductions. And then at the next board meeting, you'll have a resolution that I'll present to the board. It'll be on the agenda to pass that resolution making those cuts. All right, that's the first step. If there's unrequested leaves, which I believe there will be some, then those will also be at that particular board meeting, and you'll need to approve of those resolutions. There's very strict timelines. We need to get those done at the next meeting. Now, just because you do that at the next meeting doesn't mean that you can't bring things back later if our financial outlook looks better. Also, for the unrequested leave personnel who are on that, there's a 14-day time limit that after you approve the first resolution, they have 14 days to ask for a hearing. I've already taken the liberty to talk to somebody about setting up a mediator for that, if there is a hearing. We would also have to hire a court recorder for that meeting to take it. We're looking at that as possibly being on May 21st. Now, if there's no hearing, no request for a hearing, then we don't have to worry about it. But after the 14 days, probably either the last meeting in May, well, it would be the last meeting in May, I would bring those resolutions back to the board for the second approval of them. Once they're approved at that meeting or the first meeting in June, it depends, because once our mediator here has a hearing, he needs some time to, or she needs some time to put some information together and kind of rule on it and present information. So if we have the hearing on May 21st, it depends on how much time the mediator would take to come up with some kind of decision, or at least giving information on that particular piece. Depending on how long that is, it would either be the last meeting in May that we do the second resolution for the unrequested leaves, or the first or second meeting in June. Everything needs to be completed by the end of June in order for that to meet statutory requirements. Okay, so that's kind of the timeline that we're looking at. Any questions on that? This is very similar to what we did last year. We're a little further ahead of schedule, partly because we'd like to let anybody that knows that they're going to go on unrequested leave know, so that they can also prepare for that. With that, I'm going to kind of go through this list, ask questions as I go through. The first few pieces really have to do more with the elementary than with the secondary. It's really, the first two are retirements. And we saved $66,000 on the first one and $32,000 on the second one. That's partly because we do need to fill that position. We're not gonna fill it with a full-time, it's gonna be a .8 or a .8 position that we're gonna fill it with. But that would be a $32,000 saving. Okay? We're gonna look at reducing 2 paraprofessionals at the elementary.
Do you know where you those at this your point?
That really has to do with tenure. We kind of will, we have an idea where those specific positions are, but for right now, because we're just giving an update to the board, at the next meeting we'll be very specific on all of this. So until we make sure that everybody knows, tenure has a lot to say about how everything falls. It isn't necessarily, at least pairs, there's a contractual stuff that we need to follow in order to determine who the pairs would be that would be non-renewed or not brought back. You don't have to follow the same requirements for paraprofessionals as you do for the certified and licensed staff. So you'll have more specifics about who at the next meeting.
Is this strictly because of the budget, or is it because they're really not needed?
I think there's 2 reasons. One is that the budget is pushing everything. If I had all the money I wanted, none of these things would be on this list. You need to understand that there's nothing on this list, other than probably the 2 retirements, I'm happy for them, that are good things in my opinion for the district. This truly will, when you're cutting $300,000, this truly will be the lesser of evils. And when the administrators and I sat down, we really did look at the best way to cut things without affecting the program that we provide to the students. But if you ask me, am I happy with any of these cuts, the answer to that would be no. And no matter what the final decision for this is, the answer will continue to be no. Not happy. We could use every person we have, we could use every program we have. But the unfortunate piece is that, as the board very well knows, when we went out for the referendum, because I do get asked that question, we settled on going for $723. In essence, the board knew that wouldn't be enough, but it was something that the community was willing to support, and they did support that, and we're grateful for that. But every year, there are negotiated contracts we go through, the costs go up. We still only had limited money, even with the amount of money that the state did give us, which we're grateful for. But in the end, if we're going to not go into statutory operating debt, we can't afford a deficit spend, which we have been doing for the last number of years. We'll continue to do it this year, mainly because of our loss of enrollment. Otherwise, I believe we would have actually not deficit spend and put a little bit in the reserve fund. But now I believe we'll probably deficit spend a little bit this year again.
Just to be clear,
Yep.
when you're talking about loss of enrollment, that's about a $6,000 per student reduction from the state of Minnesota.
Yes.
For us to use for educating.
Yep.
So that's $174,000 of your 300?
But we've also settled with all of our, well, we're starting to settle with all of our groups too. So there's more of an additional cost to the district than just the loss of those students. You know, and what we are doing also is we are looking at staffing and saying, are we overstaffed? Can we get by with a reduction in staff? You know, so to answer your question, Cheryl, yeah, we also consider that when we're looking at that. Okay. Davis talked about a 5% elementary classroom budget reduction. He thinks it might be a little bit more than that, but he needs to look at his budget a little bit more. I'll solidify that by the next meeting.
What does that mean?
I got Dave here. That'll come from
Supplies.
supplies. And again, would he prefer to have that?
I know that, I'm just asking the question.
Yep, that supplies. Talked with Matt, and right now he is doing the supervision for the EC, the CE, the community ed, the ECFE, and the preschool readiness teachers and paras. What we decided to do, and I also thank Dave for this, is that we're going to change that, and Dave is going to do that evaluations. By doing that, we can transfer or charge back to community ed $5,000 for Dave doing that. Now, At least right now, he's not getting any additional dollars for that. He's just doing it because he knows that we're in a budget crunch and he's taken on that for us. So I really do thank Dave for doing that. But that will be a cost savings to our general fund because it will come out of community at $5,000. Okay? Reduced speech, this is an area that I do believe we were overstaffed in. I know that doesn't mean that everybody will agree with me on that. Certainly we would like to keep as low numbers as we can, but we've got 3 full speech people at this time, and we do believe we can get by with 2. Doesn't mean that additional work will go to other people. But that particular amount, now it would be more, except we do get some reimbursement from the state on that. Now, that's going to be an interesting thing because right now it's saving us $38,000. I believe the next year it could save us more. The state is no longer going to fund special ed the way that they did. There's a lot of changes coming down the road, not for next year, but the year after that. In which case they're looking at funding more by student and disability rather than reimbursing for special ed teachers, special ed parents. Don't know how it's going to shake out in the end. It does have a number of superintendents really nervous because we don't know. For the first year, not next year, the year after that, they will kind of have a no, hold everybody harmless. So nobody will get affected that first year that it gets implemented, but certainly the second year. We'll have a much better grip on how things are going to turn out at that point. So that $38,000 the second year could be more of a savings if we reduced it at that particular point. All right. Point 2, FTE reduction in world language, and that's a secondary piece, and that's really about enrollment and where the kids have registered for classes. And the secondary piece, as I mentioned last year, it really does have a lot to say about where the kids register. We are of such size in this district that it's hard for us to reduce sections. If we had a lot of sections in one thing, you could reduce one section and make enrollment go up in the other ones and still make some reductions. But because of where our numbers are, it's very hard to do that. When you have 75 in a class, for instance, or say 60 in a class, you could have 2 sections of 30, which I think is reasonable, high but reasonable. But it would be impossible to go to 1 section in that particular piece. The same way with 75 in a class. How do you divide the 75 by 2 and reduce a section? Very difficult, the numbers are high. So, but this is really caused because there just was not enough enrollment in that area. Okay, reduce, this is one that is a difficult decision for us. The Online Infinity program is a program that we can have students go online and take a class. Lori, do they take any college credit classes? Okay, you want to explain that a little more?
Yeah, the students, the online program has a variety of different options for students to take high school courses as well as some college courses. There's 4 different college courses that we don't offer that are available. This year we didn't have any students opt to take the college courses. Last year we had 3 students opt to take the college credit. You can still take the course and just get the high school credit. It allows for a lot of flexibility for our students. It does allow for some specialty areas. We've had some kids take computer programming, some different things that we're not able to offer here. I do believe it has kept some PSEO students here because it's allowed some diversity as well as has allowed some flexibility in the schedule, and that's why we originally implemented it, because we still, they charge us a tuition, but we still keep the compensatory aid where we still get to count that student as in our building as our student dollar number count. It is a difficult decision. Looking at it, we had 30 students take advantage of it this year. So within registration, the way we register is we don't have students registered for the online right away in January, or I did this January, I did the last January, because I did at that time know it might be an option that we may not have available, and I wanted to have the numbers in the other classes for those students, or in the numbers for the other classes. So I don't know exactly how many students it would affect, but it's gone anywhere from 20 to 40 students during the year that it would affect.
It would have been nice to know how many it was going to affect though.
Probably, yeah, hindsight. It's a good, it's a good experience for students too, I think.
The other thing,
But
unfortunately, by not having these, it also does enroll them in other classes, which makes some of those other classes viable. Where if we didn't have so many students in those classes, then you might hear from me saying, we're keeping that, but we have to reduce the section to something else. It's, like I've said in this particular piece, this is absolutely the job that I have learned to dislike the most. Coming up with reductions. None of these will be easy choices. Like I said, the administrators, as we've looked at this, we're really trying to keep it as much out of the classroom as we can and still make the reductions necessary for our budget to be viable. We can always bring things back if, the state is talking about a little bit of money. I don't know what they're gonna do with that yet, but it won't be a whole lot, but I'll take anything they give us, and if the financial outlook's better, then we can always bring things back. But if we don't make the cuts, at least originally, it makes it much more difficult.
And this is something that we can bring back as late as July. So,
What's the risk of losing funding? If we don't have Infinity, are some of these kids gonna go PSEO, or we're gonna lose some funding?
it's a definite option, and that's why we looked at it in the very beginning. It's because I do believe it keeps students here for a variety of different reasons. It is something that I would definitely be on my priority list to bring back if we have the dollars to do it.
And we have, at least at this time, we have not heard anything, nobody's come to us and said anything. They certainly would do that if that were.
Are they aware of
I
it?
just have a question.
Are they aware that this may not be available to them? Or?
We did during registration.
Quick question for how you came up with the dollar amount, because my understanding is that the class, you charge per student for the class.
Yep,
So how
that
did you come up
is,
with, is that an average of the faculty?
It's what it is costing us this year.
we budgeted 20,000 for it this year, but we will only spend 16. Because we had more students sign up for it originally last year, then they ended up decided to take courses in our building.
So
So
certainly,
it was less.
that could be, a wavering number, but I had to come up with something that I thought was reasonable to bring to the board, and it is what it's costing us this year.
Did you say there were 30 kids in it this year?
This year, 30 kids took advantage of it.
Did you say that
So-
nobody took advantage of the college credit though?
Correct. No one
So
chose
take
to.
high school classes on it. So the PSEO,
Well, they can still get a credit, just not a college credit. So they're taking classes
for high school credit.
for high school,
For high
that's
school
correct.
credit. Yeah. So, and that's fluctuated. It's just kind of dependent on the students and what they're looking for.
Any other questions on that piece? Reduction of one paraprofessional at the secondary, reducing 3 6-period classes, and again, that's mainly caused just because of the numbers. And it could have caused some numbers to go up, depends on where those classes were at, but we're still recommending that we reduce it to save the dollars. Resource training and solutions, I think it's been a valuable resource to us. It cost us $3,175. If we go to some trainings that I think are important, it may cost us a few dollars more, but we'll save. Right now, like I said, I'm looking for everything I can cut. So it's not my intent to go back. We do lose a few things that I think have been nice, honoring the staff and stuff, and I'll certainly check to see if we can pay just to go, but we'll have to look at the amount. But at least for next year, I'm recommending that we don't join, not because I don't think it's a good group, but because I need to save every penny I can get. Secondary staff reductions, 33,000 approximately. Reason I'm just staff raised, because some of that does depend on project leadway and what we do with that decision. So when I figured it out, it'll be approximately that much of savings, but where the reductions are will depend on, partly on that decision. Okay, photocopy reductions. We're looking at working with either Marco or another group to change the way we're doing our photocopier as far as machines. We have a chance, if we make some changes, to save $7,500 for that. So we're gonna look at doing it, but I've still got a couple of people that are looking at giving us a proposal. So it could be more than that, but it will at least be that much that we'll save by changing the way that we're doing photocopying. This does not, that saving does not have anything to do with the personnel who's running the photocopier. That's a little further down the list. That's just what we would save if we move to a different system. All right. Yearbook, we are looking at moving the yearbook from the classroom to an extracurricular offering after school. It would save us $8,000. It only comes out to $4,000 something because we will need to pay that person a stipend of some type. We'll have to work with EMPA to decide where that should fall. So we're in the process of looking at what other districts are doing, how much they're paying their advisor to do that type of thing, and we'll have to negotiate that particular amount. Lori and I have talked about this. We're not 100% sure on this one because it does make it tougher because it's not an everyday thing for students. But at least right now, that's where we're at, and we are going to make that that's our recommendation at this particular point. Now, again, all of these are recommendations. The board will have to act on, but I am bringing them forward at this time just to have the discussion. And also, if there's questions or comments from the board, they can certainly get a hold of me or Lori or Dave. All right. Reduce mailings at the secondary with, we're going to be moving to a program that can start sending out a number of things easily electronically. So when Lori took a look at it, we believe we can save $2,000 by moving that way. There's some things we'll still have to mail, but we're hoping to reduce it by $2,000 by doing more electronically. Have talked with Community Ed about combining our newsletters. I put $1,000 savings in there just because I'm not 100% sure what it could save us. Right now, our newsletters cost us $3,400. If we can combine with Community Ed to send out our newsletters, we're hoping to get a cost savings there and still get the information out to the community. Now, photocopy position right now costs us, next year will cost us about $12,104. That is a person who runs this. All right, now, I would tell you that there's not a lot of schools our size that have right now a person who does do the photocopy. It is an immense benefit to the staff. There's two ways when we look at our photocopy and how we're doing things. One is to leave everything in place by another big machine. Just replace the machine and our other machines and keep doing what we're already doing. It would still save us the $7,000, all right? But one of the possibilities for this is to buy some bigger, small machines and place them strategically in the building, and teachers would have the ability to print things electronically or send them to the printer and scan their card, and then it starts printing their project. There's certainly a lot of concerns, and probably a lot of things that I've talked about. The staff does have a lot of concerns about this, and I would be straight with the board about it. I believe that they've been actually for 5 hours a day for a long period of time. And I don't think it's been reduced, at least as far as I can tell, since we started to lose students. So what I've done is I've put down a 1 hour reduction, at least on the initial discussion. Certainly the board can give me their comments about that, give me their thoughts. So a 1 hour reduction for that position would save us $2,107. Even if we go to the smaller machines, if nothing else, it would allow us to maybe have a year of giving it a try and seeing how it works, and still have somebody that can help the staff do some of the photocopying. But if we did do the full reduction, it would be a $12,000 savings. So at least it's on the list now. Staff development, this one again, all of these, it just makes me gnash my teeth a little bit, because right now we only have $15,000 for staff development. And that's used for a lot of different things, including eye observation. So in essence, it's really not even $15,000, it's more like $11,000 by the time we pay for some of the things we're already doing. It's not a lot, but I'm looking at $2,000 coming out of that, stay in the general fund, and it will just reduce the staff development amount. Again, I'm not happy with that, but it's on the list. Reduce curriculum budget. There's two things. I mean, one thing I would just love to do, and I think as we talk about a facility project, the board has certainly heard me talk about that. I believe we're capital for. That's why that $100,000 is in our general fund. It should be in our capital fund. But we don't have a lot of money in our capital fund. We can spend capital dollars only for capital items. We can buy computers, we can buy desks, we can buy those types of things, tractors, vans, with our capital, but we can't transfer capital to general. We can transfer general to capital though. So if we reduce the curriculum budget, and again, there's already items that come out of that $100,000. If we don't reduce the amount, but we do transfer $20,000 to capital, it does save the general fund $20,000. Now, having said that, when we work on our 5-year plan for capital, now I have to reduce what we would spend on other things by $20,000. I would truly love to put the $100,000 into capital because that's where it belongs. I just don't have enough money in capital to do that. Again, not my best solution. You know, one solution would be just to reduce the $100,000. That would give us the same thing. If we put $80,000 in curriculum, we would get a $20,000 savings also. Neither of those are great options as far as I can do, but I'm still aiming for that $300,000 mark, so at least that's a point of discussion. Any questions on anything up to that point anyway? Okay. Reduce chemical health counselor. Now I know that we had a lot of discussion last year, but hear me out on this one. Right now, we are in the middle of working with the Stearns County Co-op, and we're going to get some dollars from them. Way back when, I don't know if you remember, but we volunteered or we agreed to join the Stearns County Co-op with the hope we'd get some money back. We put $1,500 in, we're going to get that $1,500 back. There's a group, it's about $100,000 between 10 organizations. It's not a lot. And by the time it all shakes out, I talked to a couple of members that are on the committee that will decide how it goes. I believe we'll get $5,000, $6,000. I can't supplant, but if this is a cut, then I could use those dollars to bring this back to where it's at. So that's going to be my recommendation because again, it does end up being a savings for us of $6,000, but I believe we would bring that back where we're at now. Because of, you know, we did have a discussion on that. We looked at that as a reduction last year, and there was a lot of concern about meeting the needs of our students. That brings that total line item to little over almost $301,000. Again, none of those. If we had the money, would I look at recommending other than the reductions just because we have less students? I would still recommend those because if we don't, if we're overstaffed, we're overstaffed. But none of these are good things. We did talk a little bit about possible revenue generating things. Not cuts, but in essence, you do put money into the general fund. One thing that Max and I talked about is that, and he foresees this coming sooner or later, raising our fees to get into events from $4 for students, $6 for adults, to $5 and $7. Now, it would put us higher than other districts. You need to be aware of that. If our community members have the passes, it wouldn't affect them whatsoever. We weren't looking at changing that. How much it would affect our community versus community members coming in to see the events, we have no way of telling that. It would generate, based on what we're getting this year, $7,500. So that would be a possibility.
What are most of the districts at now?
Most of them are what we're at right now. There are, I don't know if any have moved at this point, Max?
Yeah, I know some of the schools in our conference are going to move to 7 and 5. Our region just did go to 7 and 5 for playoffs, and like I told Bob, it's just going to end up happening because as people are going other places and paying $7 and $5, they're going to.
Region goes, so goes everybody.
Exactly. So this winter was the first time. In the fall it was 6 and 4, but the region this winter increased their fees to 7 and 5. I know of for sure one school that's already approved and passed, and other ones in our conference are discussing it. You know, like Bob mentioned, if somebody buys a pass, if we don't increase our pass fees, it may not be a lot of money coming from our own community, but if somebody from Sauk Center comes down to Paynesville to watch a game, we're getting more money that way too. So, but certainly some of it is going to come from people in our community as well.
Other questions on that? Chargeback, community ed for additional custodian time. One of the things we talked with Matt about was our custodians do set up for volleyball and other events. So we're going to charge back another $1,500 to them, so it does end up being a cost savings to our general fund by that amount. And then we did look for additions. I truly would love to have somebody, I brought it to the board before we found out that we lost students, somebody to help with technology. Right now, Jim works with us with technology. We're awfully grateful to have a student who is also very good at it. So we're able to make things meet, and we have other people that are helping out as they can be. When Jim retires, we're starting to develop a plan that will need to replace that. One of the things that we're looking at to reduce things when Jim leaves is to go with another organization that will help us with the same type of things that Jim do, but in order to do that, we really need to have somebody who has some good basis on the ground that can help us. If we don't make this switch sooner or later, then once we have to make the switch, we won't have anybody that's trained for it, and that becomes problematic for us. So I'm just bringing it up as something that I really do see as a need for the district to get somebody to help with those types of things. Otherwise, we are certainly going to have to revamp how we do things here, and who helps with the technology because it's going to become a problem for us. And then I think the Title I teacher really deals a little bit with where Dave is at. So if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Just about that.
Just about that particular piece. And well, I'll let him talk, but he revamped how some things are occurring at the elementary school. So this really doesn't, based on what we're doing here, there's no additional costs that this would be associated with. The reductions that we've already made and everything include the cost of that particular individual. So Dave, I don't know if you want to explain a little bit.
Sure. In looking back at the two retirements that we have, we would need to replace a .85, which Bob talked about. 2 years ago, we had almost 2 full-time title teachers. Last year, we were down, we were reduced to 1 title teacher, and there was approximately 93 students that were title eligible that we were not able to service because we were understaffed in that area. And so in looking at staffing needs for next year, I did a survey of, I think I got like 27 school districts, looked at all their class sizes throughout the K through 5, and then I compared that to Paynesville, and then I also started looking at our multi-age and checking with school districts to see who was offering multi-age. Of the 27 districts that I got responses from, three districts besides Paynesville offer multi-age. One was a year-round school that only does it if numbers are high in that summer. Another school is wondering what they're going to do with their multi-age because they're not getting enough students that are wanting to be in the multi-age. And another multi-age is a higher level, higher grade level, and it's not a typical multi-age. They combine for some different classes, different age levels. And so what we were looking at is if we can eliminate the 2 multi-age classrooms and absorb 1 retirement, absorb 1 of those to title, and then we would move up to 4 sections of 5th grade. We've been 4 sections all the way through. We have 90 students in that grade. And then we wouldn't be reducing any classroom teachers, but we would be absorbing 1 of the retirements, and 1.2 of the retirements. In looking at our multi-age, it's really a philosophical question. Any research out there shows that you can come up with a 2-hour argument either way. And what I did is I looked at class sizes when multi-age started. We were anywhere between 90 and 110 in a grade, and now we are at about 65 to 75. And so if we didn't have multi-age, our first grade and kindergarten classes would be at the average of the schools that I got responses from. Right now, we're 4 or 5 students below what the average is. If we moved multi-age and move people around, and we were able to offer the title services, we would be able to have a good chance at reaching the 93 students that we weren't able to service last year. When we look at our eye observation and the research-based way that we're going, Dr. Marzano and John Hattie are 2 highly qualified educational research people, and in looking at their hierarchy of what is effective in the classroom, is multi-age is actually fairly low, well, extremely low in that hierarchy. I think that if you look at that, the most important thing that we need to do at the lower level is have small groups, individualized instruction, and great teachers. And we are already doing that. We have all 3 of those things. Multi-age, those students, if they were absorbed into the kindergarten and first grade, are going to get the same services that they were getting in multi-age. Over the years, this is my 3rd year, and many times I've been asked by parents or told by parents that somebody said that multi-age is a gifted and talented program, and it's not. Our teachers that are teaching it right now, Leah and Rachel, do an absolute fantastic job of juggling 2 grade levels, 2 age levels, while also working with students with disabilities and learning issues, behavioral issues, just like every other classroom teacher. We also did research on 3 grade levels of MCA scores for, I think it's for the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade current students now, and we compared test scores of students who were in multi-age to students who were not in multi-age. Hardly differences both ways, actually, so which tells me that it kind of evens out. And so if we didn't have the multi-age, I would be able to absorb those people without having to make cuts to classroom teachers that we've hired in the last couple of years who are doing an outstanding job. And so that's what we're looking at now.
So what does that put the class sizes at kindergarten?
Our projected class size for, right now we're projected to bring in about 65 students, give or take. It's a little fluid with kindergarten because we'll get people who
I got that. So
aren't done the census.
if you don't have the multi-age, how many students are you going to have in a classroom in kindergarten?
Right now we have 18. If we eliminated multi-age, we would have, based on estimates, we would have about 21.6 students in a kindergarten classroom.
And how about the first grade classes?
The first grade would be 22.3, which puts us right in line with the other school districts.
I wasn't doubting your word, I just didn't know what the other classes were, and when multi-age was put forward years ago, that was one of the big things that was also a push, keeping the class sizes small, so you keep talking about just eliminating one, it's like, I was having visions of 28 in kindergarten again.
We're certainly looking at that. Part of the problem, again, is that the lesser of evils. I mean, the cuts are going to have to come from someplace. And certainly, again, this is the first piece of discussion. Next week, or next board meeting, this will come up again. We'll go through it all again, we'll have discussion again, and, but next board meeting, I will need a resolution passed. Again, even if you pass the resolution, doesn't mean we can't change it. To hit my timelines, I will need to pass it next board meeting. And I'd rather bring back than get into a situation where we didn't cut enough. That's kind of where we're at this year because of my missing that, the enrollment count. I'm wishing I probably had cut more. Can we move on? One thing that I didn't put on here that I should have added, and I just forgot to type it in, is administration. I want to have the discussion because it comes up. Okay, I have certainly been talked to about going to a part-time superintendent. I've been talked to about being a part-time superintendent, part-time principal. The problem with part of that is that if that were to happen, you would have to hire additional help. There's just no way that you can get away, in my opinion anyway, with doing that, not hiring an HR person. And any cost savings, or a lot of the cost savings that you would gain, you would immediately lose. The surrounding area, there's one soup that is a part-time soup and a part-time principal. If I'm correct on that, right, Dave? I know that that person has a business manager. I also know that person has an HR person. So you have to look at that and you have to weigh the particular pieces. Certainly if that's the board desire to go down that road, then we need to talk about that. The same thing that happens, you know, we have one principal in the high school or the secondary, we have one principal in the elementary. I don't know what you do if you cut one of those positions. You know, the last one that comes up is combining community ed and the AD position.
We tried that, it didn't work.
Well, and part of the problem with that is that you'll save some dollars, but number one, now you have a person doing both of those jobs, which are big jobs. You certainly risk not doing as well in either one of those jobs. I would guess you probably do more than risk it. It would happen. I don't know how one person would do both of those and do the same type of quality that with the individuals that we have now. And you have to remember that you still can't pay your community ed director out of your general fund. You're going to pay them out of the community, and you won't be able to pay your AD out of the community ed piece. That will still have to come out of the general fund. So if it's half and half the salary would be paid out of community ed, half the salary would be paid out of the general fund. So that's really why it's not on here. I'm not recommending it from my point of view, but certainly again, the board could look at that and say, you know, it's something that we want to go down that path. And I didn't want to go through this without mentioning those things. I don't want to do that. So I apologize for not having typed it on there. It was meant to be on. When you look at the last piece of this, secondary classes that were dropped for this next school year, it's mainly because of low enrollment. You can see them. General social studies, we had 10 in there. We have to make a decision along the line, so that was dropped. Desktop, 8, again, low enrollment. Intro to AG rotates every other year, all right? So it'll be offered next year, and hopefully it'll have more in it. International cuisine, again, 6, low enrollment. Individual living for finance, again, 11, low enrollment. And the advanced psych is a rotating one. So next year that will be offered. Again, it's always the hope when you rotate them like that, that your enrollment will be up so that we can support it more.
And one thing for the board to know is last year we didn't offer the macroeconomics because it had the low enrollment and it was that rotating as well. This is the year it rotates with the advanced psych. This is the year the macro is supposed to be offered. The numbers are down a little bit. I'm hoping they will come up when we work with the kids on their individual plans, but that enrollment is at 10. But I did choose to offer it because of the college course, and it's that rotating year for it, so.
And we did, I think, reduce the section in one of the art classes, which again, two sections, which raises the numbers in the other art classes to make those more viable for us. I mean, I think it'd be terrific to be able to offer all these classes with low numbers in them. We just can't financially support it. And again, I want to tell the board this is the first discussion on this particular piece. None of this will be fun. Like I mentioned, this is no fun for me.
So if for some reason we had an increase in number of students in the school,
You can always.
and I know I've pressed on that a number of times, we get into these things and we just like, oh yeah, this is what we gotta do. We still have the option to try and bring the school population up. There's gotta be some way to make that work. But my question would be, like when we lost the students, we run a whole year without those students. When we gain students, if we wouldn't see anything change till a year later approximately.
No, we get
You could
it's
change on
based
the go.
on enrollment, so we get that, those are adjusted per year. So the state adjusts our loss this year because we're down students next year, even because we get students that leave and we get students that come in. It's just a give and take. If you guys watch the enrollment numbers, they go up, they go down, particularly in grades. That is adjusted by the state every year. So, students when they leave, we gain when they come back.
Any comments from anybody? Not, this is our first reading, we'll move forward, but this is a business item, and so for everybody sitting here, we have public comment after every business item, so the microphone's open if somebody likes to comment. Just a reminder, in case you haven't read it, you may have a question for us that nobody can answer, which is very likely, so then we would respond when we can respond with an educated answer, but the microphone's open for anybody who'd like to speak. Okay, if none, we will move on. Let's see, number 2, review and consider approval of the 2014-15 school year calendar.
I do have that, we did do a meet confirm meeting, I believe both my board members were there. I'll kind of point out the things that people didn't like about what I presented. Number one, they would prefer not to have a snow makeup day on January 2nd. I do understand why they don't like that. It's not a good time. It's right at the end of the week. I did put it on there just because, well, last year I went through the whole year and I thought, we'll never get another winter like this. Okay, now here I am again with almost the same number of snow days. Hopefully it will end. But I do want to have enough snow days on there that we can have students in the building at a time when I think it's beneficial to the students. So I did leave that on there. I will tell the board that unless some really unusual things come, we had December, I think 23rd this year, we didn't use it. I'm hoping we don't use January 2nd. All right. The other piece that really was of concern was President's Day, and that's on February 16th. You can have school on that day. I did add it again. I think it's a good time for a break for staff and students. But again, it's on there because if we run into an unusual winter, I do again want to have snow days when they are effective for the students. So, but I cannot say that that was an option that was looked at as real positive. But again, I do want snow days on there, it's there. I would tell the board that unless it is really needed, if there's any way for me to avoid using that day, I will use it, but at least at this time, it is on that calendar. I think the rest, and you did get a new one of these in your agenda, all right? The only change on there is that originally I had gotten a couple days or one day for the kindergarten roundup in March. And those, I'd added one other day, 5th and 6th, I think originally was the 2nd. So that's the only change to the original calendar that you received. With this particular calendar, first day of school would be September 2nd. Last day with students would be May 28th. Last day with staff would be May 29th. Graduation would be on the 31st. We have 6 snow days in the calendar, of which I'm hoping we don't use any of them.
Okay.
Didn't do me a lot of good this year.
Well, when you can make the weather a fair how you like it, that would be kind of interesting.
And working on that. One other piece, just be aware is that there is some, and I don't know where it's at right now, last I heard they were talking about it as there was a piece of legislation going forward to allow us to start earlier for the following year because of the late late Labor Day. I haven't heard where it's at recently, but it would be something that I would really encourage us to do if we have the option. Is to start earlier so that we can end earlier in the 15-16 calendar.
So do we have
Any
Make a motion.
a motion by Mark to approve the calendar?
business thing?
Oh, yep, excuse me. We have public comment again. So if I forget on one of the others, just stand up and scream. We'll take it any way we can. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Which one's correct? Is the March 5th and 6th for kindergarten roundup correct?
It would be
That one's
the
correct.
5th and 6th, that would be kindergarten roundup, yeah, and if you don't have a new calendar, we can.
No, I just wondering which one's correct.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay. We have a motion by Mark to approve the calendar. Second. A second by Lou. Any further discussion?
I'm just wondering if 6 snow days is enough.
I don't know. It hasn't been the last 2 years. We're managing to stay out of the health days this year anyway. If I could, I don't know where else I'd put them. It's, and I'm hoping we don't use any of them.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Passed. Consider, or review and consider approval of adding project lead the way to the 7th grade curriculum.
We had brought this to the board at the last meeting. We tabled it at that particular point, so I am bringing it back. We do really need to have a decision on this particular one because it does have an impact on all things shake out as far as staffing.
Can we adjust the proposed 7th grade and advanced bio? So review and consider the proposal for the 7th grade curriculum and the advanced bio for next school year. And if you remember the Project Lead the Way, I did have a meeting with many of our businesses in town. Bruce and Mark were able to join us with Bob. It was a very good meeting. They definitely feel that it is the direction that would be both beneficial for our students, beneficial for promoting manufacturing, engineering, hospital programs. So the comments coming from them were very positive. We did, at this time, I have for sure half of the dollars of the equipment costs in pocket or committed to, and many of the other businesses have said yes, they will commit to it, but they needed some time to kind of go back and check and get back to me. So I'm sending out follow-up emails and visits and calls to find out what that commitment would be. So I could say at this time, I have just over half of that equipment cost up already committed for or to the school district. So I don't know if that's enough to move forward with it at this time. They were very pro. Bruce, Mark, any comments from
Yeah,
the
I
meeting?
think it was a great showing by the individuals that attended. Very excited about it, very willing to, put monies towards it, but I think we still need, from my point of view, we needed that funded. I mean, I don't know if we were gonna come up with another $10,000 in our budget if we're cutting 300, unless if you guys have a better understanding where that money might come from.
It would have to come out of the staff development budget. That's where it would have to come from. The equipment itself, I think we can work with SESU for not a lot of cost to get what equipment we need when we do the particular units. The biomedical piece, remember the advantage that we're getting for that is the college credit for our kids in science, which we don't have right now. One of the things that with the Infinity leaving, that I'm willing to absorb that a little bit, even though I don't like it, is the fact that we do gain a college credit course for our kids also with that particular piece leaving. I think it's worth it to move down that way, because I think it's in the best interest of the students for that. My belief is that I think that the community will come forward after that meeting. I think we'll get where we need to be. And I don't think if we have to absorb much, we'll have to absorb much in the end.
And the one thing with this is, as I look at it, the training doesn't start until June. If I get the go-ahead to move forward and we don't get the dollars for those startup costs, we can, because we're not adding classes, we're changing the classes that we currently have, that we could just go as is and not do this program. You know, if we get this, you know, though.
Except you have enough for 7th grade already, right? So your commitment is good
Right,
for
I
7th
would
grade.
have
If I
enough
recall, that
this-
was a $6,000 number.
Yep, so I would
Okay.
have enough to go forward with the 7th grade for sure. He's still working on the advanced bio part of it. so-
And again, I would say that if we start with the 7th grade and we have some of the money for some of the equipment with the biomedical piece, I do believe that this is a big enough priority from SDSU that they'll help us with the equipment. You know, maybe one of those things that we need to move it back and forth a couple times to make it work, but I think we can make it work.
So you're looking for an approval to move forward in the 7th grade. Now, it's not on our agenda necessarily, but the 9th grade also.
The only thing that's happening with that particular piece is that you've already got the class there. The only thing that we're really doing is changing that class to run it through the project Lead the Way so that we can do the credit.
So the approval you're looking for is really still 7th grade?
From my point of view, it would be, just be aware that we're also going to make the switch on that, but again, all we're doing is taking a class that we already have that we will be offering and allowing it to be a college credit class. But, you know, the reason that we're looking for the project Lead the Way, the approval from my point of view is because we're changing, you know, we're moving an actual class, we're not going to offer that class in the 7th grade. There's a difference there where I don't see as much of a difference other than the college credit, the other class.
Because with that change, we are dropping the 7th grade FACS program and putting in this 7th grade design and modeling program. So that would be the big difference. One other question, just because it did come up when we were meeting with the business owners, and I think Bruce, you had this question, if we did have kind of a phase 2 to this plan and the cost of that, and not that we're considering that for this year unless we went with the whole thing, but if you can click to the third slide. The third one, yeah, the phase 2, I did cost that out. Once we have the one program to move into the 8th grade middle school program, the automation and robotics, because you already have the VEX kits, the equipment cost for that program is $3,500. The course cost is $750. Again, we would be able to maintain it because the maintaining cost is similar to the cost it would take the place of, and it wouldn't take the place of IPS, it would be taking the place of the Woods, 8th grade Woods program. In Intro to Engineering and Design, that would be the 9th grade program. That one, and this is a question I have for Chuck, is why that college credit is more. I don't know if it has, you know, if it's 4 credits or it's still 3 credits. It's a very neat thing because they would still get college credit in the 9th grade. That one, it's 10,000 versus 16,000 for the startup, and that might even be $2,000 less if we're doing the printer changeover that we're talking about through Marco, because one of the printers that they require for that course is one that we would be replacing. We would just make sure that it's accessible in the area where we're teaching this course. So that I think is actually only like $8,000. You know, so when we look at that printer replacement, that we just make sure we, you know, get the one that we need that works. So looking ahead to that phase 2 and just doing phase 1, we are going to be a better school. We're going to offer better programming for our students and more current with what's out there in industry, manufacturing, and medical. If that's the opportunity arises and we can do phase 2, which I think would be phenomenal, where we will have a 7th, 8th, 9th grade and upper elective program that all runs through with technology, math, industry, manufacturing, all of those components. So that question was asked, and I just thought I'd bring it forward at this time.
And again, at this point, it's Project Lead, the way that we're looking at it. If we could get the funds to switch the other class, then we're still offering the class, it just wouldn't be college credit.
They're not extra classes. So.
Other questions?
Any other questions? We have public comment, also on every business item.
I have a question on the VEX that you're using. I've worked with VEX I did it for 2 years. My question is, why are we not using BEST? BEST is also a subsidiary of VEX, so the both comes out of Australia. BEST is used by New London, and they're starting a consortium to, and then you, is that through your program, this program that they're going to supply the VEX?
They utilize the Vextronics kit with Project Lead the Way, and that's what the curriculum is.
Oh, okay, so
It's
you're going to
built
use the
around-
VEX curriculum that
Yeah,
comes with it?
versus
Well,
the activity.
it's the Project Lead the Way curriculum.
Mhm.
The VEX are just the materials you use. Now, certainly if we can find a way to get
They're
them,
different.
they are different.
Yeah, they are different. And the consortium you're talking is the activity group
Right,
that's more
well,
after school.
with VEX, it comes in a kit, it's all right there, it looks like an erector set.
Yeah.
It has your servos and your gears and everything. And with BEST, you get parts of it, you might get your servos and you'll get your thing, but then you manufacture. So you're not, with a VEX kit, it cannot be any larger than 18 by 18 by 18. With a BEST, you can make it as big as you want.
Yeah. The curriculum is based with the VEX program, VEX components.
No, and certainly we'll be working with FCSU as we go down this road. Nice thing about it is that once you get the resources, you don't have to replace them all the time. You know, just like any other resource that we have for any of our classes.
Okay.
Certainly we'll look at doing it the
Well, I'm
cheapest
just
way we
wondering,
can do
because I've
it,
worked
yeah.
with VEX for 2 years, and I know how that program works, because it comes through the tech school out of Thief River Falls. And they supply the VEX kits for free. And so, I mean, that's the only question. I was just wondering,
Yeah.
because I'm familiar with it, and I just wanted to know.
So if, any other public comment?
So in 7th grade, you'd be replacing the fax class or the rotation,
Correct.
and in 8th grade, you'd be replacing 8th grade Woods with Intro to Engineering, basically.
Possibly, yeah.
9th grade, then what in 9th grade?
The
Because I
9th
couldn't
grade-
read this sheet yet.
The 9th grade, and this is one that we would be looking at the science department and looking at their program, and this is something that, because this is out, I haven't worked with you guys yet, is they cover the chemistry and the IPS standards with it. So it is something that could feasibly look at changing the IPS curriculum. So
And I think before we
we would
you know, I-
certainly
So
be getting it,
we
yeah.
saw, like,
Yeah,
we have a
this
long
would
ways to go before we
certainly-
go down that road.
Yeah, this is just kind of out there.
So are we looking at adding classes then in the high school as this gets rolling, or are we looking at just
No.
replacing things?
It would be replacing.
Yeah, we won't be able to add, but I think again that there's a lot of discussion to be made as we go down that road.
Other questions? I see somebody over this direction. We're okay, so public comment. Comments from the board?
As long as I've been on the board, this community, the one thing that's always been constant was that we needed to get the kids more technology, more, I can't even think of it. being able to read mechanical things and making, because they have all this industry in town that they didn't feel that our kids were being led to, the hospital, the tech jobs.
And one thing I like about it too is it's gonna be run more as a committee, and it's not just gonna be out of school, it's gonna be a committee of the peers, like people that work in the listening streets or in that whole area out there, robotics or whatever it might be.
That's
right?
just one of them. I mean, there's,
Yeah, there's tons of them, but I mean, that, it's gonna be run by a committee, and that committee is going to be kind of at least an influence on how the programs are going to be introduced maybe and funded, you know. So I think anytime, just like we had, I made an example with our FFA, our FFA alumni. I mean, we wouldn't have what we have with that plot today if it wasn't for the alumni. And I look at if this year group is as active as that group is, there is no stopping where this year whole thing can go. So,
The people at the meeting, the industry, that's exactly where they were. Just, and Mark's bringing up a little bit of a topic that came up at the meeting. Many of us didn't really know where they were at. They commented a lot about where they were at, and it worked really well. Mark made a point also to make sure they were interested in being part of that team.
and they were, so.
Any other comments from the board? Okay, if no comments, we're looking for a motion.
so moved.
A motion by Deb,
Second.
a second by Cheryl. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Passed. Okay, review and consider approval of Education Minnesota Paynesville Area Master Agreement for 2013-15.
If you take a look at the addendum, it talks about the main changes. It includes for both years the contract, steps and lanes. For the teachers, it also pays the head coach membership to the appropriate coaching association. The reason that was put in place is because right now our coaches are paying that, but the only reason they belong, they do get a little bit of insurance, which is beneficial to them and really the school if something were to happen, but more importantly, they have to belong to that association in order for our students to be put up for any kind of awards, and if that's the reason, we really felt like they shouldn't pay that out of their pocket because it's a benefit to our students as much as anything. Coach membership appropriate, staff membership to the fitness center, so the staffs will be able to use our fitness center. For the 2013 school year, it includes a $500 stipend at the top, and just the steps for the rest. And then for the 14-15 contract, it includes a 1% increase. And we also included for the 14-15 contract a $403.50 matching language, and I'll go through that as I go through it. But those are the highlights for the contract. For the contract itself, if you look at it, a lot of changes just in dates and that kind of stuff. On page 17, there's some language that was changed for new duty supervision at one time. It really wasn't a fair situation. Some people that were working 2 lunches were getting $120, and some that were working for $160, and some that were working 1 were getting $160. That language was changed, that they do get some dollars if they work 1 versus 2. All right, so it was really to make things more equal. Then if you go to page 25, that's where the matching particular language is. And the really piece of this is that we're going to match $50 contribution to the 403B, but in the end, that does come out of their severance package when they retire. All right, the benefits to the staff is that if they leave the district, they do get to keep those dollars. Right now, if they leave the district, they would lose the severance, but right now, if they stay in their district and they contribute to the $50 match, Then when they leave the district and retire, those dollars would come out of the severance package. Okay, and you can certainly read through it, there's some language in there, that right now it's just a $15 match, and there's some language about sunsetting the severance package itself once they reach a higher limit of, I think it's $200 and $300, that's towards the end of the page. So at that point, the new staff coming in would not get a severance package, they would only have the matching. Any questions on that? I can certainly take you word for word to it, but that's kind of the main gist of that. If you go to page 39, it's just under miscellaneous, it just is the language for the fitness center membership and paying for the head coaching piece. So that was added. Now, when we did add these particular pieces, it made us reformat the contract, so we changed, everything isn't under the same article anymore from last year, but it's just making everything match. Any questions on that? If you go to page 44, 45, those are just the changes with the 1%. For the second year, the first year is just the $500 piece on the top, and then the second year is the 1% on the pay scale. And then I think the only other change that is in there is just on page 48, where we just changed some of the words, and we also did move for the musical. We've only had 2 positions there for a number of years, so we put that in alignment. There's some other formatting things that occurred on the contract, but it was really just formatting. So those are the main changes to the contract. I do believe that, given the situation, it's a reasonable contract, and I would certainly recommend approval.
And then as usual, we have public comment. Anybody got comments?
I had a question about page 44. How are those, they look like $1,000 increases in the top of the scale to me.
Because when we put those first things on there, it's 11-12, but it's based on the 12-13 contract, so they do get their steps and stuff
Okay.
in that particular piece.
If you look at the 12-13, Mike, at what their salary was, 12-13, add $500 to that, and you'll.
I got it, okay.
Because they have a $500 stipend.
Stipend on that.
No, I was just making sure.
Okay, so does that make sense?
Yep, yep.
Okay.
Any other comments? Comments from the board? Do we have a motion to approve? Motion by Lou. Second by David. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Yeah. Okay, then on our addition to the agenda, we're at number 5. And review and consider approval of the Storm Shelter Stadium lease to the Paynesville Area Baseball Association during the summer when school is not in session.
This is virtually the same lease. I'll walk you through the subtle changes and just a few changes on there that we've added to clarify some things. Exhibit A is just the map on the very back, so Exhibit A is just the map. That would be not a very good map, at least by that, but you've got a much better picture when you photocopy, you won't get a good picture, but that's just the surrounding area. Everything else is virtually the same until you get to page 3. And we talked about the net profits, and I did, if they do have a big tournament that comes in. Typically, there aren't any programs, but if we get a big project, I did want to include the programs as a possible piece that we would look at. I don't think the Baseball Association has any issues with that particular piece. But we just added the word program to about 1, 2, 3, the fourth sentence up. And then if you go to page 5, that's where we changed it a little bit. One of in Exhibit B is just the piece that we have that tells about cleaning things up. Well, part of the problem with putting the exhibit in there is, let's say we have the first 5 games and something isn't working very well. Well, we would just have that particular exhibit to go by. So what we did is put some words in, verbiage in there. It's really it's the paragraph right, or the sentence right after Exhibit B and E. And it says, the parties agree that Exhibit B is a checklist developed in an attempt to forecast potential cleanup issues, but acknowledge that other unforeseen issues may arise. In the event such issues do arise, the parties agree to meet and discuss in good faith any necessary amendments to Exhibit B to ensure that the facilities are maintained in a clean and safe condition at all times. What it just means is that if we run into an issue either on the part of the baseball association or on the part of the district, we would meet, we talk about it, come up with something that will work so that we don't have the issue. So it just gives us a little bit of flexibility rather than just have an exhibit there. And then we did change on page 7. We before it was alcohol in there most of the time, now it's just 3-2 beer because that's the only thing that would be sold. So that was changed. And also on page 8, number 7, this is something that we discussed. It says, no events at which 3.2% malt liquor will be sold shall be scheduled when youth events are scheduled on high school, middle school grounds. So it's really that outside facility that we're looking at. That was a concern by the community that we came up, and Baseball Association didn't have an issue with that. We talked about it. But really, from our original agreement, those are the changes that have been made. Certainly we have some things to make sure that it all works, but I'm very confident in my position that the Baseball Association and the district will work hand in hand to make this successful if the board approves it this evening.
Any comments from the board? And then we'll take comments from the public. If none, any comments from the public? This will be our last business item.
One small change. Our actual name is Paynesville Baseball Club Incorporated.
Not association. So with that, then I would say that if you make a motion to approve, it's
We
with
changed that.
making it to the Paynesville area
No, just
baseball.
Paynesville Baseball Club Inc.
Okay, so the Paynesville Baseball Club Inc., so we just would change those pieces before the board for the sign off if it's approved.
Any other comments from the board?
I think at this point, that it's, your options are, you could certainly table, but I don't see any sense in tabling it unless you're going to do something else with this, have another community meeting or something else. Or you vote on it to accept or defeat it, or not do it, I guess.
Pretty much all of the issues that the community brought up.
Yeah, I think there's some things working out. I think they talked about what a monitor is and the training that we'll do. Certainly, it's to the benefit of both the baseball club and the district to make sure that our monitors are trained appropriately, that things run well, because if they don't run well, certainly the baseball club is going to hear about it, and we're going to hear about it. So we certainly want to make sure that those issues that are addressed or came up are addressed as the school's board, if the board approves.
Other comments? If not, we entertain a motion.
Make the motion to release for that change.
Motion by David. Second by Lou. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Pass.
I have one non-comment, but on this, reading this, wouldn't it underneath where it says, the Paynesville Baseball Club Incorporated, a 501c3 corporation, hereinafter, would you have to replace the word there, club, also instead of association?
Or you can leave it association, or you don't
Can
change
it?
everything else.
Okay, all righty.
Ready?
Okay.
We'll change the verbiage to make sure that it matches with the other
Okay, and as we talked about before, personnel, and I'll move to the end. We have the secondary school principal's report. Lori Flora.
I would first like to thank all the different businesses that came to our luncheon on Friday. I thought I was sitting there Thursday night, and when we were going to miss the snowfall, I was cheering because we were going to be able to have a meeting. It was great to have all of them there. We had some really good discussion, some eye-opening ideas and comments, and the whole program with Project Lead the Way, as well as just that input, was really good for me to hear as we kind of look forward to what we need to work with our students on. I will continue to meet with them and work for both the program as well as kind of our school to work program, and also some possible other types of partnerships that ideas were brought up. So I'm excited about that. We have our middle school play this week on Thursday evening. Our high school solo ensembles for both the large group and small groups for the choir and band are tomorrow. And Jackie and I have begun to work with scheduling with the different cuts in mind, knowing that if down the road the financial situation changes, we could certainly bring some different things back. After July, that becomes a little more difficult, just because we've had for the most part in the high school, the schedules are set, but they can be adjusted. But so with that, we are keeping busy. We have lots of different programs coming up as the year end closes. We've got the concerts coming up in the spring, senior honors, the FFA banquet, all of those things when we hit May seem to keep us moving very quickly. So we are planning that. We are going to have Chief Wagner in and one of our county officers in to do a pre-prom program for all our junior and senior students about making good choices, and watching a video on what kind of happens when those choices aren't made or we forget what we're doing when we're driving. So we are going to have a program as well as kind of a whole week set up by our SAD group, and we'll be doing different activities during the week, so they're working hard to arrange that. Our SAD program is also putting together what they call a buddy bench, and we'll be having a program over at the elementary to encourage positive choices in how to be a bulldog. You know, what are some of the right things to do? So they will be having a program, and they are designing and making a bench to be used over at the elementary, so when you walk in by the gym, you'll see it in that corner. It's going to replace that older one. So they're excited about that. Any other questions for the board? Most of the things we talked about earlier.
Are you going to have a simulated accident like they've had in the past?
It is a program that the SAD group brought up this year. This year we weren't. One of the reasons is they had so many other events to program, but it is something they want to do in the future. So we do have some contact information for that, so I would see it in the next couple of years. But they had so many things that they were already planning to do to put that one together, there just wasn't enough time. But it was an idea that was brought forward from some of the kids, and then they kind of decided that not this year, but down the road. So, okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Elementary school principal, David.
Well, just a few things to update you on. I did let you know that I had applied for reading corps and math corps people, and we were awarded 2 reading corps tutors and 1 math. And yesterday we did have the opportunity to interview 2 people, and also Terry Davidson is going to be coming back. So it looks like we're going to be able to fill all 3 of those positions at very minimal cost to the district, and those, just a reminder that those people are gonna work with students who are below grade level but don't qualify for Title I services or special ed services. And so that'll just be an extra spot for us to hit students who are struggling a little bit. So we really appreciate the people that have interviewed for that. We interview those people, reading and math court. They give us the interview questions, everything, and then we make our recommendations, and then they offer out those positions. So they make that decision in the end, but we just make the recommendations. And so we're hoping to have those filled this week. We are in the middle of MCA testing. We have our reading going on right now. We tested 3rd grade and 4th grade. 3rd grade has started, 4th grade is pretty much finished with the reading. Just a reminder that we are judged in 3 different areas in our MMR rating, which would be achievement gap, growth, and proficiency. So the reading test was new last year, and so some of those numbers will be probably a little misleading, and as the state figures it out and they get a baseline for where the students are, and it usually takes a couple years to do that. So, any questions for me?
Thank you. Next, community education report, Matt.
Okay, good evening. This came from a school-age child care program advisory committee meeting tonight with our active parent group. We're making good progress in the development of the program, and we're going to start visiting other area communities here this month. So another program to update you on, David and I are exploring a more inclusive preschool ECSE model, and we're in a study and visit mode with that too. So, Sunday we had a successful full house for the talent showcase, literally a full house. We raised over $3,000 for the auditorium equipment and program fund. And just were able to showcase some incredible talent that the community has. It was a really good event. And we're currently finalizing our summer brochure and programs. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Max, our activities coordinator.
Because of the weather, tomorrow I'll actually be attending the conference AD meeting, which was originally scheduled for April 23rd, to look at any possible schedule changes that'll need to be made. For instance, because we lost almost 2 weeks of playing for softball, if you take out the days that we have band and choir concerts, we only have an opportunity to reschedule any games on Saturdays from here on out, I believe. So, and other schools are in those same situations. A couple weeks ago, I was at the State Athletic Directors Convention. A couple of the largest items of topic and discussion when they have their sessions. The State High School League has a big push on why we play and why we coach education. Obviously, a few years ago, they implemented continuing education for coaches, and they're really, Minnesota is kind of the leader in this, but an understanding that 50% of the people in competition are going to end up losing and 50% are going to win, so there has to be some sort of value besides that. So that's a big thing that they're working on curriculum and stuff. And then, of course, another topic, district football. We'll know in June, we should know where our district will be, what our regular season schedule will be. I've been told by a member that's on the placement committee for that schools that like their current situation, such as us, have a very good chance of being in the same situation, maybe minus a team or two and adding another team, but so we're not anticipating any large change. Another thing that they're going to be adding probably next year or the year after will be continuing education requirements for athletic directors, which would be online training, webinars, things like that, timelines that ADs will have to follow through, similar to the coaches' education stuff where you're going to have to complete it on a 3-year basis or something of that sort. And then a big thing that we're looking at doing, and believe it's gonna happen weather dependent, on April 26th, we're going to have a big grounds cleanup day on our athletic facilities, basically starting at the golf course, going to the end of the softball field. So if you're interested and you wanna come with a shovel and gloves, but we're gonna do the best that we can. We have some goals of continuing to increase the playing services, the visibility of those, and everything, and so there's many members in the community, and hopefully the players themselves on the particular sports will get involved. Any questions for me?
What time is that, Max? On the 26th? What time is that?
I don't have an exact time right now. I think it's gonna be 9 o'clock, probably, but we'll have a flyer put together. Jake, I'll make sure and email it to you when we get it.
Thanks, Max.
Yep.
Anything else? Thank you very much. Next, we have the Technology Committee. Mark?
No, I forgot my paperwork, so, I know we talked about the copiers, and what, that might all entail. And then we talked a few minutes also on where we need to go with a lot of this technology and how are we going to fund it, especially, now with some of the devices we talked about last time, that they can upgrade. And so with that, do we change our cycle or what we do with it? So, Bob, do you have
I think we also, right now, there's a strategic plan for technology that hasn't been upgraded, so we're spending a lot of time looking at that, talking about all these various issues so that we can update that particular strategic plan for technology. And we'll continue to work on it for a while. It's certainly observation that we have a lot of technology needs and not a lot of resources for it, whether it's human resources or the actual hardware, software, those types of things.
What roughly is our technology budget?
Per se, we just do what we have to do. The only probably additional thing that we spend on technology, other than things that we absolutely have to do to keep things running, is we buy about $10,000 worth of devices out of the capital that we've had. We're having that same discussion now when we get to the facilities and equipment committee that we're meeting on. Yeah, there's not a lot there. I mean, I don't spend probably a dime more than I have to, because we're just so tight with our budget. I wish I didn't have to say that.
Okay. Next is the Facilities Committee, and this, I'm assuming, is the big one.
Yep.
We have a bunch of community members together, which you're all aware of. We're having lots of discussion, lots of people on there with lots of opinions. And I think I want to compliment the superintendent on putting together a nice group. It's so nice to find that everybody's willing to assist with the issues that we have at hand. And we have a very good group.
Yep, and we've had some good community members coming to that also that aren't on the committee, but that have had an opportunity to provide us with good input. So far, we've had a roofing presentation. I'll take just a short piece out of mine. The next meeting will be on April 15th. I know that not everybody can attend, and we'll tape it so that people can see it, but believe me, there's not a date that I sent out for that survey for Doodle that worked for everybody. It just is impossible, so we'll tape it to make sure that we can show the members what's going on, but you will come out and present on the elementary on the 15th. We've had a request, we've had one roofing presentation, but I think there's a few community members, and I think I agree with that myself, to bring another roofing group out to give us more facts, because we've certainly heard one group, and now we probably need to hear the other group to say, this group said this about the roof, but we're saying this so that we have more information before any kind of decision is made. And then probably on the 23rd would be another date of a possible meeting. We're hoping that maybe they come out and talk about the middle school, high school from the UL perspective at that particular time, but it is difficult to find a meeting date. Everybody's busy. Sorry, didn't mean to.
That's okay. And that's pretty much what I have. Next would be facilities and equipment. It's kind of a duplicate, but this is our committee. a smaller group?
Well, we met yesterday, kind of went down line for line, and just like we do every year, or every, should be more often, but we don't. We covered some of the needs, and like always, there's not enough money. So we're trying to get done what we have to get done. And it'd be nice to get some of the things that we would like to have done to make more of an improvement to the grounds. I think there's a lot of needs there. We talked about the fiber optic lines, and I guess we're gonna leave those pretty much. Well, we talked about patching the parking lots, seal coating, set aside some money for that. The garage area, we decided this, I think in 2015 and 16, we're going to do the garage area. And that's been put off since 1992. And we talked about the boilers. We're in pretty good shape there as far as the tubing goes, and set aside money for repairs. And talked about upgrading some of the water fountains. And of course, the normal bedroom lights, lunchroom chairs, and vacuum cleaners, and that type of thing, for custodial supplies. And, oh, Max talked about some mats and padding underneath the baskets in the gym. That's really needed. And also I brought up about some bleachers, some additional bleachers for the football field. And some of the other technology stuff we've already covered. And I think, Laura, you brought up about the potting wheel.
Pottery wheel.
Yeah, or pottery wheel, yeah. And that's about it.
Vans will be another big piece that.
Oh, the vans,
That are,
yes.
that are coming up that we're gonna need to replace a couple of vans.
Two of them, one handicap and one regular handicap. Talked about that. Set aside about $60,000 for that. And yeah. Okay.
Right now, we have more needs than we have dollars, I will tell you
Yeah,
that.
good.
Yeah. Then next we'd have the administrative meeting report.
And mine will be quick. We already talked about the facility meeting. Just before this meeting, I met with a group of teachers. We're continuing to work on the teacher evaluation piece hand in hand with a group of teachers to meet the state requirements. Went to a C regional meeting. There was some legislature that did help the donut hole districts. Didn't help us at all. I think of all the superintendents that were in the meeting when we discussed this, ours was the only district that didn't help. So it was no benefit to us all, and part of it is because we're at the $723 referendum right now, and where the $423 that they talked about was added was on top of the $300 that the state kind of supplanted, but that brings them to $723, which were already there, so it did absolutely nothing for us financially. So I was the only one there that it didn't help. So, but I think that's about it. I had intended to bring a video today of a classroom teacher who their students worked on getting ready for the state tests. I thought I'd copied it across, but it didn't come across right, so I'll bring it at the next meeting. I think the board will enjoy that. One last thing is that our policy says that you cannot name things, but we do honor people. I do have a request to have a tribute legacy wall someplace integrated, I believe, in the stadium. So there's a request for that, so I will put a group together, as our policy states. I'll include probably a board member, somebody from the Baseball Association, teacher, administrator. We'll put a group together, we'll take a look at it, and we'll bring it forward to the board. All right, but I think, and it was, the wall is to recognize and memorialize people who have donated time and resources to the district. So I think it's a good piece. I don't know any more about that until we get the group together to take a look at it. Is that it?
Other sharing? Okay, if none, we will now move to closed session under Minnesota Statute 13D.05, subdivision 3A, to review the superintendent's evaluation of Superintendent Robert Kulak.